With the Rat King's crystal core gone, the mutated rats began acting more vicious and crazy. Barricades could barely hold them back because they were able to squeeze through with their bodies. More of the filthy creatures started to appear from tight spaces and corners, looking for the next target to consume. They popped out of the holes in the walls and in the ground. As they unveiled themselves, they held onto the dead bones of their pathetic victims. The guys who were caught up in the battle were irritated and pissed at the sight of these repulsive monsters. One of them complained that the wolves were easily squeezing through the tiniest of spaces. The man screamed out with fear in his eyes as he ran for his useless life. He told his companion to watch his step close to a ditch. The bald meathead stopped in his tracks immediately when he saw a rat emerging from the sewers. He gritted his teeth and stood still as the monster sniffed around for the next person to be turned into a shish kebab. Sadly for the bald idiot, the rat grabbed his leg as he moved and held onto it firmly. It was practically over for the fat piece of garbage. Maybe if he hadn't skipped leg day, he would have had a chance. The bald freak was confused and had no idea what to do. He screamed out as more of the rats emerged and began to drag him down to the depths of their sewage. He struggled and yelled at the rats to let him go, but there was no hope for him. The monsters weren't going to pass up a feast, and the fat fool was going to be enough to feed their entire village. He tried his best to escape and clawed at the ground, but the monsters held him firmly. The incompetent fool, who stood there doing nothing, called out to his big brother, while a little girl held onto his shoulders. Tears ran through their eyes while they watched the horrid events before them. There was nothing they could do, not because they couldn't have done something, but because they were too inept to try. As the bald freak was dragged, he told them not to worry about him, trying to display some honor as he met his end. With a wretched look on his face, he told the little brother to take care of the little girl. His voice gradually faded out as the rats feasted on his meat. The rats retreated to their depths to continue their meal, but the foolish man kept calling for his big brother. Despite the fact that the ditch had closed up, he kept shouting at the rats not to do it. He could have tried to help instead of just standing and screaming like a deranged idiot. Anyway, the fat piece of shit was gone, and there was nothing that could be done about it. All they could do was stand with their mouths open because they still couldn't believe what had just happened. On the other hand, Chen was completely exhausted. He didn't look like he could still keep up with holding the rats back. There were injuries all across his ugly face, and his mouth bled badly. His eye bags were so heavy that he was like a student that stayed up studying for a crazy test. Chen said the whole thing was too much for him, and he looked like he was about to pass out. Chen needed to show up fast and save his sorry, but before it was over. With the little strength he had left, he kept trying to fight back the rats. He slashed the monsters as they approached him, but he said he had gotten to his limit. The rats couldn't give up a chance to attack weak prey, so more of them swarmed him. At this point, Chen was basically seeing Jesus already. He was beyond exhausted. He could barely keep his eyes open. His arms gave out, and he was panting like someone who had just finished going through rounds of clapping a girl's cheeks. You could tell there was no hope left in his eyes, and he had accepted whatever fate awaited him. Yunyan, as well, was being overrun by the little critters. They all wanted a taste of her milk tanks, and she was finding it hard to keep them away from her. They clawed and bit all over her body, while she winced in pain. The buildings all around her kept taking damage as well due to her humongous size. The bunny girl was also about to kiss her liquids goodbye and get sucked dry. The rat monsters ran towards her, and she said that it was impossible to block out all of them. They ran frantically towards her, and there was nothing she could do. Chen, looking utterly defeated, said it was only Chen who could rescue them from their misery. He looked up to the roof of the building, hoping for his savior to come to help his unfortunate life because they were barely surviving. He noticed a black shadow at the top of the building, and he wondered what it was. Cold sweats began running down through his face as the strange figure leaped from the roof and suddenly landed like your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. As it landed, it killed some of the filthy rats and sent them packing. The shadow's aura was immensely powerful, and Tion was frozen on the spot out of fear. He exclaimed that it was the Rat King and thought it was the end for him. It was as if the universe was trying to make sure he died in the most despicable way possible. Besides, Lihian couldn't have possibly survived being ripped into like your girlfriend's cakes, right? Anyway, it was looking really bleak for everyone. Tears welled up in the bunny girl's eyes because she thought the love of her life, Chen, had failed to defeat the Rat King. She couldn't believe a hunk like him could have failed the mission, and it made her short of words. The monster then spoke to them and told them not to be afraid. But with those piercing eyes and ugly aura, he wasn't making it quite easy for them not to shit on themselves. The girl recognized the voice as Chen's own, and she was able to calm down for a bit. His voice brought her comfort, and as her liquids dripped from her eyes, the shadow began to dissipate and reveal Suchen's face. He told them that the remaining consciousness in the crystal core wanted to devour him. But thanks to his amazing plot armor, he was holding it back. Fortunately, he had the mental fortitude of Professor Xavier. He wasn't going to lose a battle of mental strength. He had a wicked smile on his face as the shadow slowly faded away from his body. Jan was glad to finally see Suchen. It was really his friend underneath that menacing aura and some disgusting monster. He couldn't believe it, but at the same time, he was happy that he wasn't going to be sent to an early grave. If Suchen hadn't revealed himself, Jan would have most likely died a pathetic virgin. Suchen thanked his useless friend for all the hard work he had done, although he looked unimpressed by Jan's sorry state. His face gave the expression that he was disappointed in himself for teaming up with such a weakling, and an ugly one at that. Just as the shadow faded from his body, the mutated rats all fixed their eyes on him. They wanted to get revenge for their fallen master, and they didn't look happy about him being turned into a shish kebab. In unison, they all rushed towards him from behind, hoping to catch him off guard and make a meal out of him. Sadly for them, the only one he'd be feeding his chocolate to is Yun and no one else. Jan shouted and told him to be careful as he saw the monsters rushing towards him. Nevertheless, Suchen was unfazed. He slightly turned his head and told the filthy things to get lost, with a devilish glare in his eyes. Now, the rats knew who the actual monster was. Their repulsive screams could be heard as Suchen told them to scram. They looked like they had just seen a ghost. The rats quickly ran for their lives while they still had the chance. Suchen, on the other hand, just watched as the creatures fled like degenerate sisses. The battlefield began to clear out because every single mutate was fleeing the scene. Suchen and his friends just stood there and looked as the monsters ran away frantically. If not for him, Yun might as well have kissed his chocolate goodbye, and he would have had to kiss those mighty milk jugs goodbye as well. The barriers that were meant to hold back the mutated rats ended up being their escape route, as they squeezed their bodies to get through the little holes. The others escaped through their underground tunnels, never to be seen again. Some even risked their lives and went through the vents. I guess they'd prefer to be sliced and diced by the fans than for Suchen to unleash his wrath upon them. The rest of the human survivors couldn't believe their eyes. They wondered what had caused the rats to suddenly escape and run away. Instead of being thankful that they weren't sent 6 feet under, they were more bothered about why their enemies decided to let them live. Bunch of stupid fools. Even Tion was completely dumbfounded. Most of that was due to his dumb brain either way. He said that Suchen just told the rats to get lost, and he scared them away. He was still finding it very hard to understand how that happened, and he couldn't make sense of it. One of the dumbest ones among the group still stupidly asked if they had survived the chaos. Suchen told them that the remaining power of the Rat King, which he absorbed, was enough to drive away the rat people. Once again, the ultimate Giga Chad had saved the day and rescued his incompetent companions. Despite all his feats, he didn't even look happy. He just had this blank expression on his face and made it look like it was just an average Tuesday for him. Tion suddenly started coughing up a lot of blood, and he looked to be in serious pain. Suchen rushed to his side and asked what happened. Tion had been injected with poison, and it was slowly sending him to the pearly gates. Chen wanted to help his friend badly, but he was clueless about how to do it. Yun explained that the poison could make someone very powerful, but the more they used their abilities, the more poison they became. Even after all the struggles Tion went through to hold the monsters at bay, he was still going to kick the bucket like the waste he was. Suchen asked her how he could save his friend with an overly worried look on his face. Yun told him there was a special substance in Lai Haiyan's body. In order to cure Tion, they needed to take Lai Haiyan's blood and make the serum to get rid of the poison.